My guest today on Dolphin Tales, a recurring guest, Deputy AD, Senior Woman Administrator, Lauren Cevis. Lauren, thanks for joining me again here. Last time you joined, we were talking about the end of an unprecedented spring semester, and here you are now to join us to talk about the end of an unprecedented fall semester. But great to have you back on.
Thanks so much, Manze. It's either I'm reoccurring because you can't get anybody better, or I'm just that great. So I'm going to try to stick with the latter on this one.
No doubt. That's where we're going here. Everyone is great that we have on this podcast, and we don't want to start dropping down into the bottom of the barrel at any point soon. We don't need to do that. But before we get started, I know you're rocking your JU basketball pullover there. 2-0 start for the Dolphins, of course, as this comes out, getting ready to host the Presbyterian Blue Hose on Wednesday night at Swisher Gym. But I mean, you're as diehard as they come. You work with this team. You've worked with this team in the past, and you're usually very vocal in the crowd for the games you can go to. So what have you seen? What have you liked from the early performance of this men's team?
I love it. It's fun because I'm not doing color with you. So now I actually get to hear in the fans and stands with my mask on. This year, in my unprofessional opinion, outside looking in, I am extremely excited about this Dolphins team. I mean, you're seeing them moving the ball. You see teamwork. You're seeing Dontarius James out there. You look at Deontay Wood. Looks like he's dropped about 15 to 20 pounds. I asked him, I said, D. Wood, did you lose all that baby weight? What's going on here? And I mean, they came back ready to work over the summer. They really took advantage of being one of the few teams allowed to participate in summer access this summer. And you could see it, right? You could see it. They're knocking down threes. I think at one point in one of the games, it was 5 or 6 straight threes made by the men, right? So they're putting work in. They were doing so since the summer. And it's really exciting to see as a fan and as an administrator of the program.
Yeah, Tyrese Davis was 6 for his first 6 to start the season. I mean, that was about as good as a start as you can ask for. And, of course, 2 big wins to open up the season. And then the women come home this weekend as well after a tough road trip to start the year against some quality opponents down in South Florida. But I think Coach Haney's got another physical, aggressive squad. I mean, they were hanging right down there to the wire with FIU, right? I believe it was on last – man, don't tell me what day. I don't know what day of the week it was. All the days of the week are the same now. But it was – they played last week at some point. They were right there into the end, and I'm excited to see them in action at home for the first time this weekend.
You know I'm excited. So Wednesday we played Miami, and that was our season opener. How many people are playing against an ACC contender? And that's what our women did. I'd say into the last 6 minutes, 10 seconds of that game, we were neck and neck with the Hurricanes. I think the best part about it is we were about 3 for 24. I say about, but I think I'm pretty matter of fact. We were 3 for 24 from the 3. So a couple of those shots drop, and you have a completely different ball game. So we really only lost by 16 points, and shooting once again 3 for 24. You're doing something special with this Dolphins team. And then they went on to play South Florida down in Tampa with a little bit of a different outcome. But at that point, you're dealing with player injury. You're dealing with trying to come back. You're dealing with playing Miami just a couple of days prior.
Right.
To now South Florida. And then this weekend they play FIU. So we're sticking it in the Florida family. I'm excited to see what the girls can do. But, I think a lot of worry and concern was, losing Denasia Shaw this year. What does that look like for this Dolphins team? And I think you have Michaela Edwards stepping up. You have Ashley Malone stepping up. You have other abilities and capabilities stepping up across the board. So now we just need a couple of those shots to drop in. And like I said, a completely different ball game.
Yes, getting my Miami teams mixed up there. FIU coming in on Saturday, 2 o'clock at Swisher Gym for the home opener. The Miami Hurricanes were the team that they played so close at the beginning of the season. But yeah, great starts, encouraging starts, exciting starts for the basketball programs. And it just feels great after all this time to be talking about events, right? I mean, it was 250-something days from the last game till things tipped off last Wednesday night against Coastal Georgia at home for the men and on the road for Miami for the women. But hopefully things keep going in a positive direction and just not taking any of them for granted, right?
I completely agree. I'm hoping other people are sort of tuning into ESPN and really watching the news as to what's going on. I heard Alex state that only about 75% of the teams right now, Division I teams, are able to play. And it really is chilling, as you know, you're having conversations with the men's and women's basketball team about, and you're trying not to put too much on them, right? Because they're 18 to 22-year-olds for the most part. And you're saying, this is bigger than you, right? Like this university is dependent on you playing this sport. And I think when you start putting that pressure, you just have to remind them sort of where they stand and how grateful you are that they're literally pushing through and persevering. But as you watch sort of the news and the media around the importance of being able to play basketball right now, your heart goes out to those teams that can't play. And you think about the impact that it has not only on the institution, but also the student athletes. So I am forever grateful for our student athletes and sort of the work that they put in, wrapping around this, but really sticking to the course and staying in the direction and listening to all of our instruction along the way.
Okay, great segue there. Instruction, listening, that was the message that was preached right at the beginning of the new school year. Back in August, it was, we're bringing students back on campus. And it was a big deal because so many schools in the country were unable to do that. And I would say that not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, but it was largely a success and how that fall semester went. Can you transport us back to August and what was going through your mind when we kicked off this abbreviated, different fall semester, one we've never seen before, and what you were thinking going into what would make it work?
That's a loaded one. So let me see if I can knock it out here. The hardest piece was, as someone on the inside of the conversation, you sort of knew that the semester was going to be moved up an extra week, right? So as you're having conversations as an administrator, you can't necessarily allude to that information until it becomes known across campus. And as you have student athletes anxious and excited to come back to campus, general students excited to come back to campus, you're sitting on this piece of information, you're just waiting for it to become official. So once we received word that it was okay to communicate to our student athletes that we would be coming back to campus a week early, we sort of took a proactive approach, and we as sport administrators set individual calls with coaching staffs and then also the student athletes. We opened up sort of a roundtable discussion so we could field really all conversations. We took questions from parents. I joke about the women's lacrosse Brita question. The one parent asked, should I give my daughter a Brita? I said, sure, why not? 'Tis the season. But you just smile because of the fact that we get the opportunity to come back to campus. And the hardest piece, honestly, was a lot of our students struggled, right? A lot of students struggled, especially in the first 3 weeks of transitioning, where wait, am I supposed to go to class on Monday, or do I go to class on Wednesdays? Am I hybrid Friday, or am I supposed to go Mondays? And imagine having to do that for 5 and in some cases 6 classes. So that was probably the hardest piece for our student athletes. But I really have to say tribute to Dr. Sapienza, our provost, and the faculty in which she represents, because they were lenient in the first 2 weeks. They understood the struggle. They outreached if they were wondering, where's student X? We haven't seen them in the past 2 weeks. Please remind them that they're here on Tuesdays. Right. So I continue to preach the biggest piece about JU is the sense of community. I think the ability to be collaborative, collective, and communicative allows for us to have a culture of community that we do. It's a lot of C's, but it's allowed for our success. And I genuinely think that's why we're going to see, I'm knocking on wood, hopefully this is real wood, for the outcome academically this year in this semester. But because we have those working relationships with our faculty on this campus, and they want to see student athletes and students be successful. It was stressful in August because you're just antsy. You're trying to keep pushing. And then once again, you have to remind students that they have to pay close attention to what's going on, right? In the fall, they're knowing, what are we playing for? Before you stayed out of trouble because you wanted to play in the game on Saturday, right? You made sure you went to bed early because you had a 10 a.m. shoot around. And I think once again, tribute has to be paid to the student athletes on this campus because of the fact that they listened. I mean, we did surveillance testing. We did thousands of tests. And to generate the positivity rate that we did was unprecedented. And I think it goes to, yes, location, being in Florida, yes, having a small school, but once again, being collaborative and communicative and being really one of the better communities in handling this as we did.
I just want to say one of my first purchases way back at the beginning of quarantine was indeed a Brita, and maybe the best thing I bought all year.
I love it. I hope that parent is watching because I promised them that every chance I got, I'd be able to bring that up in some sort of discussion.
Hey, I mean, Water, important. I mean, what better way to save the planet than to filter your own? But all right, so that was kind of an overarching one. You mentioned the student athletes and the focus and what was driving them, what their motivator was. How many conversations did you and the student athlete services team have, or what kind of conversations did you notice when it came to, especially keeping, you had to keep everybody engaged because there was no sports happening in the fall. I mean, we just mentioned how basketball just came back last Wednesday, finally a game. But no one was playing anything that counted in the standings, even if they were scrimmaging against each other throughout much of the fall. Where were you guys able to hopefully find some keys toward engaging and motivating the student athletes, regardless of everything being different as far as competition is concerned?
So the conversations were nonstop, and student athlete services were just one piece of the puzzle, right? I think the major piece, the major platform are the coaches in which we work with. And I cannot speak volumes enough to what they were able to do in this time of adversity, because they too were not able to coach the sport that they love. And being able to lean on our coaches during this time, I've been able to work closer with Tony. I've been able to get to know Darnell and his staff a little bit more, as I work specifically with those two programs. But Angela and Andy have had the same opportunities with the coaches that they work with, and sort of seeing coaches having a little bit of fun this semester, I think went a long way, right? Like I went to a couple of Halloween practices, which was a lot of fun. You got to see the students outside of their element and they enjoyed it. We had some green and gold games. We had green and white games. So they, like you said, they were able to compete against one another to still see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I think a huge piece of it for our student athletes was being able to see student athletes at other institutions playing the game in which they love. Right. So as you're able to turn on the TV and, you hear that SEC football is being played and you're excited if you're a Terp, or if you have fans, or if you're from Maryland or New Jersey, like much of our women's lacrosse program, they are, and you see Big Tens coming back at the latter end of the fall semester, and you're starting to see signs of hope. And I think nothing else, coaches were great, student athlete services great, Alex, our athletic director, phenomenal. However, I think being able to see it allowed for them to believe it. And I genuinely think if it weren't for other institutions sort of stepping out and taking that leap of faith and playing the sports that are also critical to their overall economic growth and their development, and sort of, making sure you break even as much as you possibly can this year, it genuinely helped institutions like us so our students could see there is still a chance we will be playing because other people are actually playing.
You and the student athlete services staff have done a phenomenal job. Actually, Alex Ricker-Gilbert was interviewed by Pat Sitkins for the other half of this podcast about where his growth has come over the years in helping to build up the Jacksonville University Athletics Department. And he highlighted you coming in when he first started and sort of building this department from the ground up, because I mean, my goodness, when I first started here, there really wasn't anything. It's amazing how far it's come. You all build relationships, and that's part of the success. Obviously, the way relationships are built has completely changed, at least for the time being. So what are some of the ways that you all have had to adjust this year to continue to connect with the student athletes on a personal level while being restricted in certain ways?
That's perfect. It's funny because my student athlete services represents one of the areas, right? I also work with athletic training and I work with strength and conditioning. Now, athletic training and strength and conditioning, you make a great point. They get to have that face-to-face interaction with student athletes a little bit more than we do. It's student athlete services. And I am laughing only because I'm thinking of the countless FaceTime calls and having to walk through my house, literally holding my phone, trying to explain to the students, I promise the Wi-Fi is better in the office or outside. We are now Zoom professionals. I speak to student athlete services and I say, if at any point you're that person who's speaking without muting or unmuting yourself, we just lost the title, right? Because we've been doing this for so long. We were still able to do Dolphin Life development. We were able to use Zoom breakout sessions. Our admissions team really helped put that together for us. And it allowed for a lot of effective programming all on a virtual platform for us. So It still wasn't the best, right? You always love the face-to-face interaction, especially because in our field, that's what gives us energy. When we get to see our students smile and you get to hug them and you get to say, good job. So it hurts a little when you're just, I can't touch you right now, Manze, right? I can't, I can see you. So that was the hardest piece for us, but we just increased our connectivity through virtual platforms. And like I said, although it's not the best solution, it was the obvious solution given the time that we were in. And once again, the goal at the end of the day was we need to make sure November 25th happened. And it happened a lot because we took heed to what President Koss said, his senior council, his senior management team with Alex said, and go virtual if and when possible. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why we were able to play this past Wednesday.
Okay, so November 25th happened. The first semester is in the books. As much as you can in this environment, let's look a little bit forward. I know that is one of the hardest things to do these days, more than ever. But there is actually a unique situation that was created with the changing of the semester to create a winter term. I mean, that really hasn't existed. That's something, if you went to a school that did quarters back in the day, you could participate in. But what has that done for the athletes? I mean, are there students kind of like summer that will be taking classes over the course of the winter? And what does that look like?
So the moment I heard that winter term was a possibility, I was a huge advocate because at University of Maryland, my alma mater, we had a J term. That's what it was known as, the J term. You know, you had 3 weeks of class. You could hurry up, hopefully get an A. A lot of times it was a lot more difficult than you planned on being. Winter term, everyone, it was a lot more difficult than summer term. I just want to put that out there if you ever see the transcript. But it really allowed, it was twofold, right? It was beneficial for our staff and our faculty because it allowed for a source of revenue, right? At the end of the day, it allowed for a source of revenue. But then it very similarly to our summer school program, it allowed for students to either get ahead, catch up, or just stay connected. Because if you're not used to having a month and a half off of school, sometimes you can lose touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're not a student athlete and you're a member of the general population, if you finish class on November 19th and you don't have to come back until January 25th, how in the world are you staying connected? We don't issue summer readings, not in high school anymore. So I genuinely think it allowed for an opportunity for students to take advantage of it. Now, student athletes, it depends on sort of what boat you're in. This year was the first year that they're trying the winter term the way they are. I see some adjustments taking place just in terms of being able to apply aid to pay for winter term. However, the courses were only $900. It was $300 for credit, which is amazing for a winter term class. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And I genuinely think so many students took advantage of it. I had students asking, well, how many can I take, Miss Lauren? I'm thinking, oh goodness, I'm going to have a student enrolled in a full-time load during a winter term, and I have to explain to them it's every day. It's an everyday grind. So keep that in mind. But without digressing further, I genuinely think winter term was a great decision. I hope we get to move forward with it because it allows for students to catch up. Every now and then you have a freshman who bites off a little bit more than they could chew in that first semester, especially during this sort of unprecedented time. So say you had to withdraw from a class and take them from 5 to 4 classes, maybe I can add them into a class. And really it's as if we left nothing behind, right? We still had 5 courses, 15 credits on the books for our first semester. So I love the winter term. I think it was an awesome opportunity. I love the fact that it was still being hosted online and it gave students an opportunity to continue to be engaged with our university.
And it's majority or all online, is that correct? I mean, so it frees people up to take the classes wherever they may be.
So it'll be different. They have different platforms, sort of what we did this year. Online platform is your typical, you log in, you can do quizzes, you pace yourself. And then they're also doing the hybrid session, sort of what you and I are doing here, to where we can log in on Tuesday, Thursday from 3 to 4:15 and actually attend a class. So 2 different platforms really being used, equally amazing. I don't know which one I would choose, maybe both.
Nice. I like that. It gives people some flexibility, it gives people some options depending on how they learn better. And I mean, so much of learning all across the country is happening in some sort of online session. So, I was a catch-up guy. Usually in the summertime, we didn't have a winter term in college, but it's like, yeah, you know what, gotta try and make up a little ground here over the course of the summer.
It's what you need. I was the person who just didn't want to go home. I know that sounds bad, but I loved my college experience. So I just kept saying, oh, I need to take this other class. I really say that all the time to my parents. Oh, there's just one more class I need for my major. And then I ended up taking so many, Scott, that I ended up having the opportunity to graduate a semester early. And I remember like hiding the letter so they wouldn't send it to my parents because I wasn't ready to graduate a semester early because I was just taking all these classes year round, not to have to go home.
I worked so far ahead that I was one whole credit hour ahead when I came to the last semester of senior year. So I took 14, not 15, because I wasn't going to give them any free hours.
That is absolutely.
But that's how good of a student I was.
Oh, Manze.
Okay, let's look to the spring semester here. The plan is late January to get back, and is there a different plan in place? Are we attacking this the same way that the fall went because that was successful? I mean, it's apparent that by January, it's not like the world is going to be drastically different than it is now in a positive manner. I certainly hope it's not in a negative manner, but it is. We're still facing much of the same challenges that were presented to us at the beginning of the fall semester. So is this a great chance for you all to take the lessons learned from the fall and apply those to make the spring even more of a smooth endeavor?
Yes. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but Student Athlete Services handled the fall so well. I am genuinely trying to put a finger in, and the staff will laugh when I say this, but I'm always of the belief that we can always do better. And I am struggling. In fact, we didn't even schedule a meeting this week as a staff because I'm trying to figure out how could we have done better this fall. So I have a couple of days until Monday to figure out how we could do better, because although school doesn't start on January 25th, some of our student athletes are currently scheduled to come back as early as January 4th to campus, just because of the way their spring competitions lay out. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's, could we maybe increase capacity a little bit in our study hall? Because, opening, instead of, we're normally open around 8 a.m., we started opening up at 6 a.m. and we stayed open an hour later, and just sort of rotating the staff throughout. I noticed a little bit of burnout amongst the staff, and just sort of being more cognizant of staff mental health and staff awareness is probably one piece where I know I can personally grow and develop as I work with athletic training, strength and conditioning, and student athlete services. Because, you always want to grind. You want to do the work. You want to serve the student athletes. And then you realize when you still have a month left of the semester and you're looking for a nap, and this time you're looking for a spring break and you won't get it this spring, you have to make sure you pace yourself. So my biggest goal for the 3 areas really that I work with and the 3 teams that I oversee will be make sure you pace yourselves. And I think we did so well. I mean, we had all summer really to prep for the fall. Right now, I guess you have a month to prep for the spring for us, but I have to make sure I send home the message of pace yourself, because I'm so used to being the one, okay, I need the Dolphin Life Development Calendar finished for not only spring 21, but I want it for the summer and I want it for the fall of 21. Now I need to be able to pause, reflect, and peace be still, as my mother would say, and really give everyone the opportunity to debrief, take a breather right now because it's the time to do so, and then we'll come back and grind all over again.
Well, Lauren Cevis, hopefully we get you on a broadcast at some point this season. I know that you sometimes like to put your professional cap on and not yell at the teams and the refs a little bit out there at a basketball game.
I'm working on it. It's really made me stop speaking as much, because yelling with a mask on, it's either I'm really out of shape, Manze, or I'm not sure, but I cannot seem to catch my breath once I sit back down from yelling. So I think I may be a little bit more reserved.
I'll believe it when I see it. She is Lauren Cevis. She's the Deputy Athletic Director, Senior Woman Administrator, and a longtime advocate for student athletes at Jacksonville University. And appreciate you joining us again here today on the Dolphin Tales Podcast. A happy end of the semester and holidays to you, and looking forward to hopefully a great spring semester too once we roll that calendar over.
Thank you so much for having me. Anytime. Go Dolphins.